Gary Ramsey. This is my very first attempt of doing a live conversation by myself. I've been doing them for a couple of months with Louise, who's my coach and mentor. And so, Gary, thank you for showing up to be my very first guest, and how blessed I am to have such an incredibly amazing guest on my first live. So I'm going to quickly introduce you, and then I'm going to let you tell your story, because your story needs nothing but what it is. Because if it wasn't a real life story, we would all think it was a really good movie script. So Gary Ramsey is now an author. He's written a book about his experience. Gary will show you the book, or we'll post the details at the end. But Gary, 5-something years ago, I think it was faced with an absolute death sentence in terms of a cancerous tumor that he had. Like literally, he left the doctor with a diagnosis of, you may not be alive in 1 minute, you may not be alive tonight, go home and sort out your affairs. And Gary got catapulted, he'll tell the story, from that state of absolute devastation and disaster into a state of another level, a completely different state of being, which he calls bliss, and he needs to explain that himself. And he started from his intuitive heart space, taking steps which ultimately, or very quickly, led to him doing things and going on a path that actually has led to him sitting here alive and well 5 years later. It's an absolutely remarkable story. It's riveting, it's inspiring, it's comforting. So, Gary, with that said, I'm going to hand over to you, because your story needs as much space as possible.
Oh, thank you so much, Antoinette. And that's a beautiful introduction. I really appreciate that. That is just lovely. And yes, as you said, that was my diagnosis. I was told that I could.
Oh, sorry.
Had made it very clear, even showed me exactly what was going on. I think he was also a bit in shock as well, because I showed very well, symptomatic wise, but internally, nothing showed well. My tests were a disaster. And at first, when he told me, I didn't really get him. And I kept saying, well, how is that possible? Like, I've heard of people who have 2 months to live, 3 months to live, something. And he said, well, because your tumor is going towards your heart. He said, and these are very, very, very complicated. They're very hard to remove. And he finally convinced me, and I had gone to him because he was so well known. He was a specialist. He was top of his game, 30 years practice. He took the practice over from his father, who was another maverick. And I just thought, wow, this is really not good. And he said, this is grave. He said, it's grave. He said, and I cannot guarantee you anything. Even if we took you to a hospital right now and we had a top surgeon operate on you right now, chances are you're going to die on that table. So that really put me in a spin. And what I remember is I got very quiet. I got very still. And I just kept breathing, because I am a voice teacher. I'm an Alexander teacher. And so I wanted to stay very connected to my body and to myself. And then I asked for my tests, just off the top of my head. I don't know why. And he was even kind of shocked, because there was nothing I was going to really be able to do with them. He already told me that they did me no good. And all the tests to Sloan, which was the hospital, Sloan Kettering in New York, he recommended, they could have sent over easily. But I just wanted them for some reason. And then I kind of felt dumb. And then there was an array of things. He had stopped all his other patients, of course, because I was the most serious. And then they gave me copies of everything, and I got out the door. And literally when I got out that door, I felt like my whole life changed. It was like I went from this moment to this other moment, and I felt like a weight had been taken off of me. It was the strangest experience. And I could breathe, like I could really breathe in a way that I had never really breathed before. And I thought, oh my God, what is that? And then I didn't know what to do, but I knew I wanted to get out of his door, his path. So I made my way. There was a little park very close by, and I made my way to the park. It was a gorgeous late summer day in August. And I got to this park and I saw all these beautiful children and their nannies and their parents and people, old people sitting around, and, people playing chess and talking. And all of a sudden it hit me, anyone can die at any moment. And the only difference between me and all these wonderful people I'm seeing is I know it and they don't. And that was it. It was like my body just went, whoa. And I was in a state of what I would just call bliss. I no longer cared about anything. I no longer worried about anything. I didn't think about what I was going to do. I wasn't even aware of me as a person, although I know I was, but I was in ecstasy with just the gloriousness of everything around me and in me. And I sat down on that park bench. I remember that. And I just thought, this is the strangest thing that has ever happened to me. Mm-hmm. And I stayed there for, I don't really even know how long, until the name Anita Moorjani came up. And as you may know, but some of your people may not, Anita Moorjani wrote a very famous book called Dying to Be Me. And in that book, she was on her deathbed of dying of end-stage cancer, 45 minutes to live. She had gone through a near-death experience and came out of a very long coma and knew that she was going to be well. And within 8 days, her cancer disappeared while in a major cancer hospital. So I had been very moved by that story, and I had recommended that story. I had read that book for like 3 years at that point when I was diagnosed.
Before you got cancer?
Before I got cancer, long before I got cancer, which was another blessing that had come to me. Because she published in 2012 and I got my cancer diagnosis in 2015. And I thought, oh my God, she had something that happened for her that was miraculous. Maybe I'll have something miraculous happen. Mm-hmm. And that was the first thought of what was going to happen in my situation. I thought maybe something is out there, but I had no idea what that was. I had no idea what I was going to do. And then I remembered I needed to call my sister because she was very worried. And she kept thinking that this is probably not that big of a deal, as was I. And then, I called her and I said to you earlier, I was like, oh my God, she's going to be thinking the worst. And then I started laughing because I thought, oh my God, this is the worst. What am I going to say? And before I could even stop laughing, she was on the phone. And she was like, oh, so it's all good news. And I was like, well, no, it's not really good news. And it was a difficult conversation because what I realized is I had to balance this extreme state of bliss, of high energy bliss that I was in, with this reality of where I was in this third dimensional world. And that was my first moment of really having a very hard time between what I was experiencing and what other people were experiencing. And I like to liken it to be, I felt like I was fifth dimensional. And then I would have to drop down into the third dimension. And even after our conversation, which she was very, very worried, she said, what are you going to do? I said, I really don't know what I'm going to do. I have no idea. The doctor said I need to tell people, so I'm telling you. And I was an opera singer at that time as well, so I needed to clear my engagements. So those were the next calls I made. And I just kept wandering until I finally made it home. And when I got the key in the door, I remembered Farrah Fawcett, and that she had been flown to Germany shortly before her death. And at the time, I asked a friend, why did they take her to Germany? And they said, oh, Germany has the top cancer treatments in the world. So I flew up the stairs and I thought, I'm going to look at Germany. Maybe they have a treatment that can help me with this tumor that they just don't have in the States. And that's what began my journey. And from there, I linked up to a place in Mexico. And when I even saw it, it was on one of those pop-ups on the right. And God, that is so gorgeous. And I even said out loud, that would be the perfect place to die. If I'm going to die, that's where I want to die. And sure enough, I popped on the link and they treated quote unquote difficult cancers. And I thought, well, mine's difficult. So I called. And that was the beginning of what I call my journey through this way of interacting between bliss and this third dimensional reality. And it was like I was bouncing between two realities. And I write about this in my book. And I have found that other people who have been in similar situations as mine, even car accidents or something very major, experience this sense of bliss, this sense of peace, this sense of just everything is perfect. And I think you even mentioned, didn't you have something like that yourself during your cancer? Or during your journey?
It's echoing badly. Can you mute yourself? Let's see if it helps if I'm talking. I don't know why it's it. Is that helping? Yeah. Can you hear me now? Yes. Okay. So Gary, for me, when I got diagnosed with cancer, it was nowhere near as extreme as your situation, but I had a very aggressive cancer, and I was shocked because I wasn't a cancer candidate. And the most bizarre thing happened to me, I don't know if it was immediately, but within a short while, is I started feeling what I now recognize, because you've named it, as a kind of bliss. It was even joy. Joy was something I could not access my whole life. And there I was in my garden feeling joy and really this kind of bliss and centeredness that people talk about all the time in the spiritual world. I'd hang around and to be honest with you, I never mentioned this to a human being until now, because until I read your book, I was like, there's something wrong with me. I'm sick inside my head because I'm feeling joyful and peaceful because I've got cancer. It's like, what's wrong with me? So I just kind of never shared that. So could you share with us, why do you think that happened to us, and with you in the extreme, actually?
From the people that I've spoken to, I think it has a point of surrender. That when some people get into extreme circumstances, they surrender and let go. But then there are other people who don't do that. They are people that cling and they contract and they get extremely tight. And they go into the fear reflex as opposed to the expansive reflex to let go. And I'm very fascinated with this because it happens to a lot of people. And, people know this because, for example, we all know of those stories where a drunk, right, gets into an extreme car accident. Everybody else is killed in the other cars except for the drunk who gets up and walks away. That when we surrender and when we let go and when we give up a need to control, and somebody who's drunk, of course, has given up control, that we go into another level of being, we go into another state. And it is something that I really impress upon people who've read my book or who contact me, because the fear contraction is always going to bring you more of fear. It's always going to bring you more fear and more devastation. And the expansive contraction is always going to bring you more of that, more expansion and more openness. And it was
Gary, sorry to interrupt you, but this is such
No,
an
that's okay.
important topic. So are you saying that it's acceptance and surrender to what is, but you didn't give up, clearly, otherwise you wouldn't be here today. But it's kind of like, I've got cancer, I've got cancer, I've got cancer. I named it, I accepted it, and I even made friends with it. I didn't fight it. I didn't go into resistance against it. And a lot of people criticized me for that, actually. They thought it was a very defeatist approach. So interesting to hear this.
Yes, and I also got criticized for it. People thought I was being very cavalier, very flip, and very nonchalant about the whole thing. But I was taking steps. Of course, they saw my idea of going to Mexico as foolish because there were no guarantees. But what I would tell people is there's no guarantees anywhere. They're telling me at the top cancer hospital in New York City that I'll probably die on the table. So where are the guarantees? There are none. And if I am going to die, I want to die in a beautiful place surrounded by beautiful things, as opposed to some cancer hospital in New York City where it's, I've had friends that died there. It's not very pretty. And that was my decision, which I got met with a lot of opposition, a tremendous amount of opposition. As a matter of fact, people became more abusive. I was having more trouble with people who loved me than I was with people who didn't know me or know my situation. And that was a very interesting part of my journey. And it really taught me a lot. It really taught me a lot that when you press the wrong buttons in other people, they can't really care about you because they're too overwhelmed with themselves. They're too overtaken with themselves. And that was eye-opening for me because I always thought when somebody was dying, people would rush to them. And some people, they do, but only if they're following the rules, only if they're doing what everybody wants them to do. I've now met a lot of cancer people that if you don't follow the rules, then you're going to meet with a tremendous amount of opposition. And now that I've spoken to so many, I've written articles on it. People have agreed. Even doctors have contacted me and said, oh my God, you are so right. And no one talks about this. No.
Gary, this is such an important conversation. Yeah, because for me, I got such resistance from people in my world because I made a choice they didn't like. And they just didn't like my choice. And everybody was trying to tell me how to heal my cancer, mostly people that never had cancer. And so it's like, this is not talked about actually. And so maybe we should have a conversation one day also, how do you support someone with cancer? And one of the main things I would say is to accept their decisions and the path that they choose to walk, because I chose to do chemo in a world where all my friends and my life previously was into non-allopathic medicine and alternative medicine. And I got so much flack for it. And that doesn't help your healing journey because I knew I had to do it. And that's the other thing this speaks to is for each and every one of us, the healing journey is different. Am I right?
Yes, you are absolutely right. And that is what I impress upon people always. It is not about Western medicine. It's not about Eastern medicine. It's not about allopathic. It's not about homeopathic. It's about all of them. But it's really about how the person relates to both themselves, their cancer, and the treatments that they have available to them. Because if it's not a good mix, like a recipe, it's going to go badly. It's going to go extremely badly. And I tell people there is no correct approach. The only thing that you must do is really become centered within your own self. Talk to your body, know what your body wants you to do. Most of our bodies know if the chemo is going to work or if doing an allopathic treatment is going to work. Most of our bodies are way smarter than we are. But the problem is people get in their head and then they start contradicting and they start getting confused and they start getting paranoid and upset and worried. And now you're in the contraction. And now you're being tossed in the wind. I mean, that's really what's going on with a lot of those people. And the tragedy is that really every person has the answers, but they don't realize it. They do not know that they actually have the answers. And that's one of the biggest messages I try to give through my story, that I didn't know, even the doctors here didn't have the answers. And even Mexico, they knew it was very dangerous, and they said, but we will give it a try, and we do have better success than they do in the States. So I thought, well, even if I've got a 10% chance, it's better than what I'm being told here. So I thought, well, why not just try this and just do this, and let's see what happens. And I found in my journey that how you are relating to your cancer is of extreme importance. Now, there are some people that hate their cancer and they fight it. And there are certain people where that approach works for them. And I would never tell anybody not to do something that's working for you, ever, ever. I have one friend, long breast cancer survivor. She fought and she hated that cancer, and it worked. And she's 10 years later, alive and well. But I am not that kind of person. I don't have that kind of anger, hatred against things. I'm not, my life hasn't gone in that direction. I'm unable, I'm not a fighter. I'm not a fighter. So I, similar to you, loved my cancer. As a matter of fact, I loved my cancer so much, it was almost to me like bringing new life onto the planet. And that tumor, I even used to envision it like a baby. And I used to keep thinking, it's my baby. I created it in my body, and it's my baby. And actually, if you would have seen it on the pictures, it kind of looked like this alien baby. I mean, the kidney has like a torso, and then there was a little tumor coming out of here, and there was a long tumor. The dangerous one was like an arm stretching up towards my heart. The other tumors were growing out of it like arms and legs. And I thought, I'm going to deliver this baby whether I live or die. Just like certain mothers, they feel like, I want this baby to come into this world, and I will risk my own self to do that. And that's what I kept envisioning. And I kept envisioning that it was going to come out beautifully, and it was going to be a beautiful delivery, which was my surgery. And sure enough, the doctor, the surgeon, who never heard me say that, literally said to my sister when I got out of surgery, he said, oh my God, it was miraculous. That tumor came out like a baby. He said it was attached to nothing. He said it was unbelievable. He said one of the most miraculous operations of this type he had ever been through.
So I hope you don't mind all this interruption, but
no, not at all.
So many things I've been passionate about on my journey, but I don't often get to discuss because people are on different paths. So do you think that the kind of engagement with your tumor and the visualization of it coming out like a baby and giving birth helped it come out easier? Because there's a lot of scientific research now around visualization and how powerful it can be in healing.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Because, and I even work with pregnant women now, because it is, remember, the tumor is alive. As a matter of fact, that's why it's killing people, because it's alive. And remember that it does have life force in it. We created it within our energy fields. And even though it may be our darker energy fields, it's still part of us. Just like a baby is part of a mother. It's part of her. It's inside of her. And as you direct and work with them, you can help them to let go or to do what you need them to do. And I work with pregnant women all the time, and I teach them how to settle the baby if they're too active, or how to, get rid of problems or pains, or if the baby is overexcited. Because again, it's a real being with real consciousness. And that's what cancer is. Cancer is a real being with real consciousness. And so 100%, I would agree with that. And I tell all my cancer people, you know, if you want to fight it, just make sure you have a lot of energy and you have a lot of rage, because it's going to take a lot of rage and a lot of energy to win that war. But if you don't want to fight it, you better learn how to be at least friends with it. And if not friends, try to love it. And that's really the array of emotions, because it is alive and it is a part of us, just like a mate or a partner. And once people get their heads around that, I really believe that was crucial in my journey. And even the surgeon later said to me, you know, we have not had this kind of success like yours with people who were as serious as yours. He confessed to me afterwards. He said it was really touch and go, and we didn't really know if you were going to make it, but we kept holding our faith. And he said, and you did the same thing and it worked. He said, and he really believed that had a tremendous amount of, you know, to do with.
And, you know, you shared with me when we had a chat a few days ago that you actually fully accepted that dying might be an outcome. So it wasn't like you were pushing away from that. You're working towards healing, but you completely accepted you might die.
Absolutely. Because again, I made friends with death. So for me, it was a win-win situation. I no longer see death even as an end. I see it as a new beginning of another journey. And so I was good either way. If I lived or if I died, I knew it was going to be for the greatest good of myself and everyone else involved. And that is a powerful place to heal from. It's the most powerful place to heal from. Unfortunately, our world doesn't work that way. And our world teaches us to be terrified of death, to be terrified of disease, to be terrified of, you know, pain and suffering. And that is really why we are in the state that we are in. That the consciousness, when a person is in terror, if people think of like a deer in the headlights, that a deer becomes paralyzed because they can't see. And when we are paralyzed with fear, we can't see anything. We can't see a way out. We can't see what or where to go. And that is the killer, not the disease.
That is so big. But the thing is, Gary, that we also haven't been socialized or encouraged to be our own healers and to walk our own path. And that doesn't mean you don't do chemo or operations. I did all of that. But I also very much worked on healing from the inside out. And we are not encouraged to do that by and large anywhere in the world. It's like woo-hoo, you know, it's like, and we've also been socialized to believe what an authority tells us. So if a doctor tells you you're going to die, you know, that power of the mind is so huge. We all know that most people will probably go home and die, or within 3 months, if that's the time they're given, they will die. But it doesn't have to be that way. Am I right?
Absolutely. And that's what the doctor said to me. He said, you, unlike a lot of people, were able to really stay very stable and calm and open. And even the diagnosing doctor, when I got back, I had to do a 3-month and then a 6-month checkup. And I had him do it because he's the one that found the cancer. So I said, I'm going to have you do it. He was shocked when I walked in. He was absolutely shocked. He said, I thought I would never see you again. And I said, surprise. And he did. He wanted to see my pathology reports from Mexico. So I gave him copies of all of those reports. And he said, this is truly one of the most amazing things. But unfortunately, it is not allowed here in the States. And that's when I started learning, and then through my other people, that we have, different countries have different rules. And they will only allow certain rules to play out, and they will not allow others. So all of my treatments turned out to be illegal in Mexico, here. So no one could legally do any of my treatments here.
Wow.
Yeah. And the reason that clinic was built in Mexico was because the man that developed these treatments wanted to get out of the States because they wouldn't legalize anything he was doing. So he had to do it someplace where he could do it legally. And that's why he went to Mexico. It's only 50 miles south of the border of
Oh, really? Hey?
yeah, yeah,
Can
yeah.
you talk us through quickly what they did? Are you willing to share your journey there?
Absolutely. It's really about food, uh, food and herbal. They work a lot with, but they also do a lot of energy work. They do a lot of. They have this astounding setup with this high tech um, energy machines that do kind of vibrations and rays, although they're not X-ray. It's really, it's amazing. Some of it was even hard to explain. They use every kind of form, yoga, I mean, anything, meditation. They believe in the whole, the mind, body, and spirit, and they work with all of them. As a matter of fact, my very first appointment, the very first day I arrived, was with the therapist, just a regular therapist, psychologist. And the first question he asked me, he said, "So, how do you feel about possibly dying? How do you feel about that?" That was my first conversation there, and that is what they really want to know. They want to know you as a real your spirit, your soul, where you are, and they want to know your fears and they want to know what's going on, and that's what they work with through the whole process. And then my only Western treatment was the actual surgery. So I had no chemicals, nothing. Until, as a matter of fact, I was told if I had chemo by the first doctor, it would probably fracture the tumor. And for sure, they said radiation would, don't even allow them to do radiation. So I didn't have any of those things. And then the operation was totally Western, and they took out the tumor and the kidney. And then it turned out that my cancer had stayed so stabilized that they were able to put me on a serum they made out of my tumor that they sent away. And I was given that serum kind of like a rabies injections for a period of 6 weeks. And now I'm immune to ever getting that cancer. So it's already been over 5.5 years. So I cannot, they say it's impossible for you to get that cancer again. It cannot metastasize. It's not possible. So I'm considered cancer free. Not in the States. I'm not considered that in the States. I'm considered that in Mexico.
So you were told you would probably die the same day or very, very soon, and 5 years later, you are declared cancer free.
As a matter of fact, I was declared cancer free in Mexico when I left.
Incredible. Gary, how's your life changed? You say nothing in your life changed externally, but everything changed, you told me.
Everything changed. Everything changed in my perception. My perceptions are no longer what they were. It's like that other Gary actually did die. It feels like he really did die. And what came back is this other version of Gary. It's almost like when people talk about walk-ins, when a certain soul walks out of and then another one walks in. And even though it's all the same, there is very little in terms of the outer things, where I live, my work, my main jobs that I do. None of that changed. I've been teaching and doing those things for many, many, many years. But the way that I see everything, the way that I interact with everything, the way that my emotional life, my physical life, my spiritual life has altered dramatically.
So can I ask you, you said it felt like there was another Gary. Is it not just that is who you truly were or are, but that part of ourselves, that divine spark, we're born like that, but it gets covered with layers of trauma and conditioning. So most of us have to unlearn all of that to become this person that we really are. Do you not think you just became who you really were? You just dropped all those layers, like.
Absolutely. I totally just became this other person. It felt like I was a new person, but I'm sure you're absolutely right. All those layers just dropped off. It was like the cancer became this cleanser of all of these things that had kind of encapsulated me. And that's why I call that cancer one of the greatest blessings of my life. It totally took me into a whole nother level of existence. And I will say, I feel more like I live what I was living in the park the first day of the diagnosis. I feel more like I'm on a fifth dimensional reality, and that this third dimensional, I drop in, just like I did with the cancer. I drop in occasionally, but it doesn't overwhelm me. It doesn't overtake me. It doesn't, I no longer have the ability to be fearful about things or to be worried about things. I can be concerned. I can know that something serious is happening, but I don't take it on. And I know now that everything in the world will work out well. It will all work out to its perfect divine manifestation, and that I can help it by not interfering with it or with myself. And that's what I often advise people. That's really what I tell them.
So it's about, and Gary, one of the reasons I want to have these conversations with people is that my own journey has been that cancer was a great gift for me that transformed my life so positively. And I think that there's so much difficulty out there right now, so much cancer, other illnesses, COVID, bankruptcy because of it, families being separated, all the stuff that's going with it. It's almost like every human being now is being exposed to what some of us as individuals are going through or have had to go through with chronic illness or something. And I wanted to speak to real ordinary people. You're no ordinary person, it seems, but real people who have gone through real experiences of true metamorphosis and transformation through catastrophic situations or hardship, because that can be the gift in it. But some people's journey is to die. Dying is not failure. But once again, there can be a massive transformation. How do we die if our journey is to die? Yeah, so I think it's so amazing that you're sharing this story. Thank you.
Oh, you are so welcome. And I agree with you 100%. And people look at death as a failure or a negative or something that is not good. Remember, that's programming. That's programming that we've all been taught. Death is actually a new journey that goes beyond this one. And this one is very important because only what we can take with us is what we've learned. I'll tell you a story that was also, I put in the book. When I woke up out of the surgery, I actually thought I had died. And now we got to remember, that was a lot of drugs. I was under a lot of drugs because, it was a major, major surgery. And I really thought, and I don't know why, still to this day, I have no idea, but I really thought I was dead. And the reason was because I saw this, I'm going to say person, but it couldn't have been, but I'm going to say it was a person, but I knew that they were beyond this reality. And they were almost angelic. And then there was another person. So there was a person to my right by the bed, or the gurney that they had me on. And then there was another person at a desk to my left. And it was kind of like heaven and hell. It was like the person on the right was so glorious and so wonderful. But the person on the left looked like I should know them, but I didn't want to know them. And then I thought, I must be in some kind of waiting room, and this person on the right is going to take me somewhere. But then I realized that this angelic being was actually my grandmother. And this seemed like it went on for a long time. It probably didn't, but again, I was completely drugged up. And my grandmother began to speak to me. Once I realized she was my grandmother, she started talking, but I couldn't understand her. I could not understand a word she was saying, but it was beautiful. Everything she was saying was absolutely beautiful. And I kept thinking, this is so crazy. I don't understand what's going on. And she said, she kept saying things like, it felt like she was saying, you will know, although I couldn't still really understand her. And then I grabbed my, whatever they had over me, I grabbed it and I held it and I thought, this is real. And then I realized I was extremely thirsty, like horribly thirsty. And I turned to her and I wanted something to drink, and she just kept talking. And then I turned to him and I asked for something to drink, and he reacted. And then the minute he spoke to me and he said that I couldn't have water, but they were coming for me soon, when I turned to her, she was gone. And it was a very poignant moment. It was almost like I was balancing between two different worlds at that exact point. And then I was very confused. And then I didn't understand why I couldn't understand her. And then I felt bad that I had asked for the water. It was like all these weird things going on in my mind, just cascading in my mind. And then I became extremely elated. And by the time I got to the room, I was a babbling elation of just overwhelmed. Again, it was like I was in this heightened state of bliss. I couldn't stop talking. I couldn't stop laughing. I couldn't, none of it. It was just astounding. And I mean, I was literally dissected halfway around my body. I mean, it was a huge operation. But I didn't even feel any pain. And I'm sure I was on good pain medication, but that was the beginning of what I realized was not real, wasn't normal. And even the doctors were like, wow, you are really, and I was up walking within 12 hours. I was up walking on my own. After a major surgery like that, they were blown away by that as well. And they kept going, no, don't hurt yourself. Are you sure you're not going to fall? Are you sure? And they kept, and I was like, I'm fine. I feel great, And even the doctor said it was one of the most amazing healings he had really ever witnessed. When they even looked, they took me off the medication early because I didn't need it. I didn't really feel pain. They were just in shock. And I think it was really the God blessings of that bliss just coming down and just showering me. And then I later found out what my grandmother was saying. And that turned out to be another amazing thing that woke up in my consciousness. So my story, what I realized is the more you open up and the more you expand and you go into the positive realm, as opposed to the negative realm, the more blessings you keep receiving, because I was grateful for everything. And the more grateful I was and the more happy I was, the more I kept getting and the more unbelievable things that kept happening. And that is really what I think healing is about. I really, even though I had bouts of pain that were extreme, they got less and less and less. And by the time the surgery came, everybody was amazed. They would call me the walking amazement because they had a name for it in Spanish, and I forgot how they used to say it, but it was just my way of I was just so joyous and so happy. So again, it turned out to be a blessing. And that's what I try to tell people, the gratitude and the gratefulness and the knowing that you're really blessed. And even for my people that are dying, that you are blessed, that you are complete, your journey is now moving into a new dimensional reality, and that this is a wonderful a birthing into this new dimensional reality, and to not be sad. And that's what I try to help people with, whether it's turning out well, or, you know, whether they're going to live or they're not. So that's been my experience.
Gary, we need a few hours. Maybe we need to do a few more chats, but we've got 15 minutes left. So I'm trying to figure out how to find the comments here. And maybe while I'm doing that, if there are people watching who have very bad cancer or very catastrophic circumstance they're facing, what 3 things would you throw out, or is that impossible to say? What would you say to someone who's watching going, yeah, it happened to him, but it will never happen to me. Look at me, I'm like really sick or dying.
First of all, that we are a living, breathing potential. We are living and breathing potential always. And that the key thing is your breath and your ability to really allow your body to breathe fully. Remember, breath comes from, respiration, the word spirit. And that is really what we are. Our breath is our spirit. And that also is what, like in meditation, helps to become more centered. And that whatever you've been told, or whatever people are telling you, or doctors or whoever, that it doesn't mean that it's true. It simply means that it's something that they are seeing from their perspective. Because that's the one thing I learned about my diagnosis. In the United States, I was a dead duck. But in Mexico, I wasn't. And all it was about was perspective. The doctors in Mexico looked at it from a different perspective than the doctors in the United States. And that was revelatory to me, because when you have that ability to look at it from a different perspective, you have greater power. You have much, much greater power. And let's face it, everybody has a different perspective, because they're viewing it from their limited mindset. And it doesn't mean it's accurate 100%. It's partly accurate. Like my diagnosis here was absolutely, I mean, there were a lot of accuracies in my diagnosis, but the prognosis had a lot of inaccuracies. And then I found that actually it had a tremendous amount of them, and that it didn't have to go down that way. So perspective, that no matter what you've been told, it's just a perspective. Remember, the strongest thing you have is you. Remember that the people around you cannot see you clearly in your healing, because they're too horrified about what's happening to you, and if something like that were to ever happen to them. So sometimes your loved ones are not the best people to go to. They're not the most supportive. Sometimes they are. And that you are on a great journey. And no matter how the journey ends, all will really be well. It will be well. You will transcend it one way or the other. And that is really what I always try to get people to look at from that way of looking, and to keep yourself in a state of as much ease. If you can't hit bliss, then keeping yourself in the greatest state of ease possible, and not letting dis-ease or the disease overwhelm you. So that's
incredible. Sorry, I'm not distracted because I'm not riveted. I'm trying to find out how to find all these comments, and I can't. So Louise is trying to coach me on the phone, because it would be so amazing to see the comments.
Okay.
I'm so sorry.
Excellent. And as I say,
You carry on, Gary. Carry on talking. I'm sure
yes,
we'll get it right in the next
that
few
a lot
minutes.
of people that I've helped. Remember, I'll tell you about one case while you're doing that. She was at Sloan Kettering, where I was supposed to go, and she was given a grim diagnosis, and she was told that they had nothing except for one clinical trial, but they advised her that if she took the clinical trial, chances would be she would die within a 2-week period. They said they didn't think it was going to work. It didn't look good for her, and that there was a high probability that she would die of kidney failure from the clinical trial. And they said, if you don't take the clinical trial, you'll die naturally, and you'll probably last a year, year and a half, something like that. So when she contacted me, it was shortly after I got back from Mexico, actually. She contacted me, and I said, so what is the issue? Like, what is your, and she said, well, I really want to do the treatment. I said, the clinical trial. And I said, why? And she said, because when they said it to me, a feeling shot through my body, and I felt like I should do it. And I said, well, then there's your answer. That's it. She said, well, no, I have a problem. And I said, well, what's the problem? She said, my husband and my mother are 100% against this. They want me to stay with them. They want me to stay home with them. They want to take care of me. And I said, okay, well, let me ask you just one question. And she said, what's the question? I said, how would you feel a year from now or 2 years from now on your deathbed if you didn't do that clinical trial at Sloan? How would you feel on the day of your death? And she said, I would be so remorseful that I didn't try. I said, well, then there's your answer. You have to do the clinical trial. And do you know she did the clinical trial, and she's still alive today? I have contact with her. She is still alive today. And they pretty much, she is another success story because they're studying her to figure out why the clinical trial works so well.
That is incredible, Gary. I don't know if I can get the comments, which is really sad because I believe there's a lot of them, but we will, the video will be recorded.
That's right.
And it will be on
comments. Yeah, on YouTube. And I will answer them.
It will be on YouTube, my Facebook profile, your Facebook profile, so Gary can answer the comments, and we can even have a follow-up session to speak to the comments. I'm so sorry.
We can do another talk, so don't worry about that.
Yeah, and Gary, I don't know if anyone else has benefited from this. I'm sure millions of people will or have, or even if it's one, but for me it's been amazing because it's spoken to so many parts of my journey. I said I'd never do chemo. I had not touched an allopathic drug for 32 years.
Wow.
And my body, I was in such, because I've got a very difficult, over-analytical mind, it took me 3 weeks to believe my body that it wants to do chemo, actually. Because I refused to believe it because I didn't want to ever do chemo. I wanted to go to the Gerson Institute and do green juice. But my body said chemo, so eventually I accepted it. And the incredible thing is that the chemotherapy and all that went with it was a major part of my healing journey as a human being. Major in so many aspects, which I won't go into because it's not my story. But if I hadn't done that chemo, firstly, I'd probably be dead now, disabled. And secondly, I would never have had the transformation I had through that particular journey.
See, and again, Antoinette, it just goes to prove that the individual, the body and the spirit knows how to untie the knot of this dis-ease or disease that they've been afflicted with. And it's only a matter if they're able to follow and listen to the guidance. And even at the Mexican clinic, it's called Sanaviv, that I went to, they said there are many, many roads to healing. There are many roads to healing. There is not one. There is not one road. And that's
Gary, I've got the comments. Sorry.
Oh,
There's
great.
many more. So Louise is sending them to me. Do you mind if I read them to you and you can talk to them? So Alison Tucker, who's a friend of mine who herself has been through cancer and is a survivor, she wrote, "Close people sometimes distance themselves, but I remind them it is about them and their issues, not about you. Perhaps you triggered something in them, their own fear or something else."
Absolutely. She's 100% correct about that. And all cancer people have to remember that it's not about you. The other people, no matter what they're going through, no matter how much they hate you. I mean, I had some that really hated me. It's not about you. It's about them. And it has nothing to do with you. You can't cloud yourself with their problems, because a lot of people, that's what they do. They inflict their own projections onto the cancer person.
Mm-hmm.
And it
and
only,
their own fear. Yeah.
out of fear, and it only weakens them even more. So yes, bravo. That was a fabulous comment. Fabulous.
And Ali said, I'm going to interview Ali in a few weeks' time as well, because she's been on an incredible journey herself. She said, I identify with so much of what is being said. It's paralleled my own experience. Thank you, Ali. Any more, Louise? Okay, those are the only two Louises. Send me. Oh, next time I'll get this right, Gary.
Oh, that's all right. That's all right. When, as I say, people can watch the YouTube, and then I'll answer everything from the YouTube. I do it all the time. I do it all the time when people see something and then they want an answer. So, yeah.
Amazing. Have you got a copy of your book you can show us? I started listening.
My God, I don't have a copy here, but it's Bliss, One Hero's Journey. Hold on. If I run maybe over here.
Okay.
Bliss, One Hero's Journey. And it is on Amazon.
And Audible. I bought it on Audible.
And Audible and Kindle. Here it is in paperback. So there it is in paperback. And Anita Moorjani did a beautiful endorsement. And Colin Quinn, he's a comedian here in the States. He does the foreword. It's very funny.
Please read it. Read it. It's hilarious, actually. And it's poignant.
It is poignant. He's quite a guy, and I gotta just find it here.
I know, but what he wrote on the cover, that's, I think, incredible. What he wrote on the cover.
What he wrote on the cover? Oh yeah, he said he's the only person, me, that can make you hope you get cancer so you can go on an adventure like he has. And he is a comedian, so you know he does. He does know how to put a joke out there. And so the book I really wrote for people because so many people would ask me. I did a radio interview with Anita Moorjani, and that went viral. That became very big. And I had hundreds and hundreds of people asking me like, oh my God, how did you do this? How did you do that? And they wanted to know specifics. So the book is really all the specifics. I mean, basically, everything happens exactly the way it happened, as explained in the book. And, you know, I took it really just from all the writings I was doing because I used writing as kind of a therapy during that time. So I wrote down, because I thought, well, if I die, then my family, you know, they can know what was going on with me through this journey, which was really spectacular. I mean, it was, as I read through my own notes, writing the book, I sometimes thought, oh my God, this is a little too much. I mean, I would have these euphoric days, and there were not a lot of dark days, but there were a lot of people I met there that had a lot of dark days. And I befriended a lot of them, and we would work with that, and we would talk about that, you know. And God knows, I hope I helped some of them, you know, to overcome their challenges. But it was a blessing. And I sometimes still can't believe it really happened as beautifully as it did. I really can't believe it. But the only reason is because I feel I didn't show fear. I would have moments of fear. as I say, I would be on the fifth dimension, and then I would touch down, and there would be like fear somewhere, and then I would transform through it, and God would just push me through it to it, and then I'd be back in the fifth dimension again. And it felt like the whole journey went that way. The whole journey went that way. So that was one of the most amazing things for me. I've never had anything work out that perfectly.
Yeah, because fear is a natural reaction for most of us. I mean, I can't say I didn't have any fear at all. It sounds like you had a very remarkable journey. I was terrified and shocked in the beginning, and then it kind of sunk into this like. And sometimes now I'm more scared now about my dog disappearing in the forest than I was when I had cancer, and I find that so intriguing.
Oh, that is intriguing. Yes, yes. Because I've lost those kind of fears of people. Also, a lot of friends didn't come back into my life when I came back, and some of them were even angrier than they were before. So there was that, and then there were others that did come back into my life. There's others that apologized. There's others that never apologized. We just went on. So it was interesting, and I just kind of went with it, and I didn't expect anything from anybody, and I still don't. I just live my life, and I give what I give, and if somebody likes it, they do, and if it helps, that's great, and if it doesn't, that's fine, and if they don't like it, that's fine. I also get hate mail, people are saying, oh, this is ridiculous. Yeah, people who just think my story is just ridiculous. How is that even possible? But again, Anita gets the same thing. I mean, it's partly, and again, it's, as your friend said, it's their problem. And it's kind of where they're stuck in their own world and in their own life, where they cannot transcend. And let's face it, it's just like somebody who's a multi-billionaire, and everywhere they turn, they fall into more money. There can be a lot of jealousy surrounding that. There can be a lot of hatred surrounding that. Mm-hmm. Just like people who heal or have, miraculous things happen to them, there can be a lot of jealousy or hatred around that. So we have to remember that egos in people can be very strong. So I ignore it. It doesn't bother me. People call me a fool or an idiot or whatever. It's like, well, then that's
I'm a
okay.
happy idiot.
Exactly. I'm a happy idiot. I'm alive and I'm happy, and that's fine with me. It doesn't really matter.
Gary, have you got a few minutes for a few more comments, or do you have to run
absolutely do. Absolutely.
Gary's in New York, so he's 7 hours behind us.
Yes.
So Shelley Pringle wrote, breath is the breath of life. The earth was breathed into life at the beginning of time, and God breathed life into the first man and woman. As he breathes his life into us too. Isn't that beautiful?
Shelley, that's beautiful. And yes, the breath, people don't realize going to your breath and fully. I look at breathing now as an internal massage of all of your organs and all of your being. I feel it is like one of the most healing, most lovely things. And again, it's what we use in times of crisis, emergencies. It's what women do when they're delivering babies. You have to use that breath. That breath is what's creating a movement in the system. And I agree with her 100%.
Wow. And Louise van Liebenberg, who's my mentor and coach and has written a very successful book herself, says, this looks like a must read. So
thank you, Louise. Thank you. And it's nice and short because it's
and
nice.
Ellie Tucker, who herself has just put out a book as well. You guys, me and my book's been coming for 3 years. Anyway, Ellie said, a very powerful thought, many roads to healing.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that comment. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I don't know about anyone else, but I've learned so much from you, and I've had so much confirmed for myself. And because sometimes we can feel like, not like a freak, but you feel like a bit weird, I don't know. Because
yes. No, I know, and I get it. And there are still people that do look at me like a freak. There are people they really do. I mean, they really do. It's off-putting, you know, sometimes because I make them nervous. Also, I remind people about cancer because they know that I had cancer. There are a lot of people that get very freaked out by the word cancer. They don't want to hear it. They don't want to discuss it. And when I walk into the room, it's just like the elephant sitting in the room. I'm there. And that can make people very uncomfortable. It can be very, and then sometimes I have people that are like, you know, should I eat this? You know, I'm like, eat what you want.
Well, you know what? Anita Majani was such an inspiration for me because my story could have been her story. I was a vegetarian, organic products, completely anti-cancer lifestyle. So when I recovered from cancer and I felt like eating again, I now have more cake
Yeah.
and I eat meat again. And I'm like,
right.
because I'm like, and that's what Anita said. Some of us, our healing and our bliss, our meditation lies in a piece of cake. For others, it's a green juice. You know,
That's right. That's right. And people don't realize food is alive as well. And you've got to just have, what attitude are you using when you bring it in? If you're eating something and you're saying this is bad for me, then it's not going to be good. But if you're eating something and like, I love this, even if it's, you know, filled with sugar, then that's great. Because really the attitude is everything. We can transform anything. And I think you know about that Dr. Emoto, he's now passed away, who did the transformation of water molecules with thought. So thinking, blessing water, I mean, I do it now all the time with everything. It's just a part of life. If I touch it, it's being blessed. And that, and then if I take it into my body, it's being blessed. And people, you know, again, our world has us programmed to believe this is good, this is bad, this is horrible, this is wonderful, this is what you should do, because they're trying to make money off of you. I mean, that's all they're trying to do. They don't care. They're like, whatever. But
Gary, we've got some more comments here. So before you have to run off,
sure. I can. I have time. Yes. I don't have my appointment for a while.
Yeah. So Shelley Pringle says your fear is debilitating and stunts healing. And in fact, I think it can cause illness, don't you think?
Yeah. Absolutely. As a matter of fact, I would say the bulk of mine was caused by fear.
Wow, and mine too, actually. So Claudia says, this is Claudia Tellers from London. What lessons could we draw for those of us that are not ill, but trying to evolve our patterns and programming, which sometimes prevents us from connecting to our bliss and live our most authentic life?
You know, that is a spectacular question. And what we have to remember is that and it's kind of easy in a sense, anything that is being told to us on news, on media, in film, on television, on radio, it doesn't matter. It's part of programming. It's part of programming. And then the question, even advertising, we know that it's all programming. Then the question is, are we really taking it in? Are we really conscious of what's going on? Or are we zoning out and just letting it come in our ear? Kind of like fear porn. We're just letting it come in. And that's where people have to be careful, because they mindlessly sit in front of a television. That's one of the most dangerous things you can ever do. Or mindlessly listen to some news report. It's one of the most dangerous things you can do, because you are giving your energy over, kind of like a cult. You're saying, here, take me over and fill me with whatever you want. And I always watch things and I always am discerning and I'm always seeing. I now see where things are moving into programming. They want me to believe this. They want me to believe that. This whole deal with the COVID, the misinformation is staggering. And to be honest, you have to do hours of research to find good information on COVID. If you're listening to the news and the newspaper, you're in fear porn. You're watching porno. You're watching fear.
I love that. Gary, don't you think COVID For me, I've watched very little and I researched very little because cancer taught me that my inner self, my intuition, my heart space, my God self, that will tell me what
That's
I
correct.
need to do, whether it's have a vaccine or not have it, or so we know internally, and also that's also different for everybody.
That
So
is so different for everybody. I agree with you 100%. But I'm just talking about the ones who want to know. You got to do your own research. You cannot trust other people, just like my doctors. Here, they were telling me I'm going to die. I didn't. So I tell people you cannot take even the top expert, the top scientist, the top anything, even Einstein. They're starting to prove there's certain things that he had incorrect, that you have to really discern and use yourself. And you can never go to sleep when you're in front of those things. You can never go out and just go, oh, or go along with it, because it's kind of like being led. It's kind of like Satan is leading you down the path, because you're
yeah,
being
so
over.
it's so interesting you use that word Satan because a major part of my journey was coming to the point, and Shelley helped me a lot. Thank you, Shelley, if you're still here, is to know that those evil, devil, dark, whatever you want to call it, energies,
Right.
most certainly can. You've just mentioned it. So a constant practice I have now is prayer, and people have different names for that, but to connect with the divine, to God,
Absolutely.
and to push out deliberately with thought. By the way, thought is a very powerful healing thing. Our energy vibration needs to be high, but we can use thought so much to help that. So I say, be gone. Because I still get terribly insecure at times and fearful, and I go, be gone. You don't belong here. And I bring in the armor of God to protect me, and that's it, because it's a scary time now. Full stop. Never mind whether you've got cancer or not. So thank you.
No, and that's why that was a wonderful comment. And so many people right now, what are they facing? Fear of disease and dying, and death. A fear of disease and death. That's really what this time is about. And as you mentioned earlier, I think the whole planet is now going through what we went through, and that they're now all having to, in a sense, go on that journey. I feel like I'm reliving my cancer through this event.
Me too.
Yeah,
I
and
feel
to
like
be
it
honest,
prepared me. Yeah.
and it prepared me. I'm on a high. I mean, I've had so much, and again, this is going to sound terrible, but I've had so much fun. I have met so many people like yourself, so many people that I've helped that I would have never had time for if I was leading my old schedule pre-COVID. I would have never been able to do like this interview right now. I don't even know when I would have been able to do it. I
Yeah,
would
there've
be
been
running around New York City right now.
so many gifts in it. Hey, Gary, I'm
Yep.
just going to go on. There's a few more comments. What an inspiration to listen to both. Claudia Tellis from London again. Thank
Oh,
you,
thank you,
Claudia.
Claudia. Thank
And
you.
Claudia's, I think, on Anita Majani's book group as well. So we kind of all
Oh,
connected there.
wonderful. Wonderful.
So Robin Rom, who lives here in the village where I live, who's had the most incredible, devastating hardship in her life and has transformed through it, not illness, but other things. She said, I love elephants in the room.
Good for you, Robin.
And Gary, you have to listen to her story when she comes on, because the synchronicities and symbols with elephants in her life have been her gift and her healing.
Wow. Well, good thing she's in South Africa.
Yeah, exactly, in Africa, yeah. And Kathy Potter Irwin, who's in Scotland or England, I think. My love for you, pair, is enormous.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Oh, bless you all.
Oh,
Okay, I
that's
don't see any more here for now, Gary.
excellent. Excellent.
Yeah, that was extraordinary. So I don't know if you want to do a parting. Yeah, finding true faith in God and therefore myself was a major end outcome of my journey, Gary. So the other thing I say to people, that this journey of healing myself physically is through healing myself mentally and physically. I had to unpeel the layers. Mine wasn't I had that instant bliss, but then I've been on a journey for 3.5 years of unpeeling, unlearning who I'm not actually to become who I am. And I see that now as a journey of sacred training, because the ultimate end result of that is true connection with the God self and God, because it's all the same, really. I am in essence, I am a drop of or spark of that divine. So this is the journey took me from a chronic illness, death, not like you, but I had a very aggressive cancer, to mind and emotional work, which is spiritual work. Actually, it's all the same. It's incredible.
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, I don't see the two as different. I feel that they go together always, always. There's no separation. Unfortunately, some of us, though, do need to separate in order to be able to work with it. But if somebody can see their physical, like I got to the point where any treatment, even eating, was a treatment. Everything I did, walking to my next appointment, was a treatment. That everything I was doing for myself was a treatment towards a greater opening to healing. And that was it. And whether I was going to heal or die, the surgery was the determine. As a matter of fact, I didn't mention this. We had a very bad night the night before my surgery. My blood levels had gone really bad, really, really bad. And I knew it. I could feel it. And I was trying to keep calm because my sister had to be there for my surgery. Otherwise, they needed a representative in Mexico for an American. So I had to have a family member, otherwise they weren't going to do the surgery. And things had gone very bad, very, very bad. We were doing great. And then just that night before, my blood just went, and I was becoming highly anemic. The red blood cells were just going. And the white blood cells were going high. And I knew the doctor said, we're going to have to do a procedure we didn't plan on. And it was a transfusion. And he said, no, I don't want you to be worried about this. And I said, I'm not. I'm absolutely not. I said, trust me, everything is just fine, you know? And then I remember he said, they're going to be up there. They're going to prep you for it. I'm probably going to do 2 transfusions on you. So don't worry about it. It's good blood, blah, 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 blah. I said, look, everything is great, doctor. Don't worry. Everything is fine. But then my sister, she like went on a nosedive because everything was going great. And then it was like nosedive. And I was like, don't do this. Don't get upset. And we were in a beautiful room. It was beautiful. And I kept showing her like all the parts of the room. Look, you can do this. And I was trying to get her out of that mood because, again, I was happy. And even if I died on the table that next day, I was happy. And I wanted her to tell everybody that. We went through a whole list of things I wanted her to do and then tell people. And I wanted her to just say, this was the best journey of my life. And even if I don't make it out tomorrow, I'm still thrilled. We've had the best time. So that's how it went, you know. So once again, you know, if you make peace with it, there's no failure. There's no bad. It was all good. It was all good, you know.
So Gary, thank you so much for sharing all of that. I feel privileged, really, on my very first time to have someone like you.
And you did great. This was wonderful. Thank you so much.
Can only get better. Gary, maybe on the comments tomorrow you can post the name of your book or a picture and of the clinic you went to, and because that might be very helpful to people.
Good. And remember, sano vive. It means healthy life. Sano vive. Yeah, sano vive. Yeah, in Espanol. Sano vive. Yeah. So
amazing. Hey.
Yeah.
Thank you, Gary, and bless you. And I'm sorry if there's any other comments. I can't access them. Next time I'll do better, but we will, Gary or Gary will answer them tomorrow. And if there's any I need to, I will. So thank you for showing up, everyone who did. And please share this. if
Yes.
there was anything that was helpful that may help somebody who's going through a crisis now, because so many people are.
Exactly. Exactly. Yes. All right. Well, bye, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Gary.
All
Maybe
right.
we'll do this
Bye.
again. Bye. Love
Bye.
you. Thank you. Bye. Bye. Okay.